So in this video I want to talk about some of the things that me and the boys did back in the day at the lunch table in elementary school. The high school lunch table was pretty boring. The middle school one was interesting to say the least, but the elementary school lunch table was legendary. That's probably just my bias since elementary school was the only really enjoyable age of school from an actual school standpoint. But I want to tell some of these stories anyway, just as a little nostalgic thing, or whatever you want to call it. There's one main story I want to tell, which is kind of why I'm making this video, but I'll also get into some less significant ones later. My most vivid memory of the lunch table back in elementary school was something we did over the course of all of those elementary school years. After everyone finished eating their lunch, we would throw together whatever scraps and crumbs remained from each person's meal. And this typically included stuff like crumbs from chips or just other snacks from bags, the salt from pretzels, random fruit snacks that we smashed into a sludge with our fists, pieces of bread crust, and lots of other random items. Some of them were liquid sometimes too. And we would always mix these into either an empty bag from someone's snacks or sandwich that they brought, or into someone's empty water bottle, and we would usually use the water bottles if whatever concoction we were making included liquids like water. And I don't know why there was such a strong urge in us to create these forbidden serums so often, but we always did it. And I actually can't recall anyone eating or drinking any of the things that we made, but I'm sure we would have been reduced to atoms if we did. My fondest memory of doing this was this one time where we made a mixture in a water bottle, which resulted in what looked like a normal bottle filled with water, but it was just slightly off. There's a little bit of yellow to it, but from afar it looked like normal water. So I decided to bring it out to recess with me for some reason, and for a reason that I've never decoded to this day. A teacher came up to me and told me that I wasn't allowed to have water with me during recess. So I was obviously confused, but looking back, maybe she knew what sort of horrors were lurking within that bottle. But I kid you not when I say she literally told me that you aren't allowed to have a water outside unless it's at least 98 degrees Fahrenheit outside. And this happened almost a decade ago, and I still remember those words because of how absurd it was. That's like over 10 degrees over the typical hottest temperatures where I live, by the way, so that makes it even weirder. Anyway, there's this other time where we smashed up a bunch of fruit snacks when trying to make one of our little mixtures, and we did it on the floor, so luckily no one ate or drank that one, except they actually got implanted into the floor, so we got yelled at and were forced to scrape them off like little prisoners after lunch had ended, so that was pretty sad for us. Another big thing I remember was how my allergies affected the cafeteria around me. They didn't implement this until, I think, the last year or two of elementary school, but they eventually had me sitting at a peanut-free table with a big peanut-free sign on it, and people could only eat there if they didn't have peanuts in their lunch. This forced my entire friend group that typically sat with me to never eat peanuts again, which I'm sure was sucky for them, but I wouldn't know because I will die if I consume something that's meant to be consumed. Because that makes a lot of sense. One last story I want to tell is this little game we played at lunch once or twice back in 5th grade, where we pretended to be in court and tried to convict each other of doing bad things to prove one another guilty in front of the rest of the friend group. We did this as a way to reveal hidden grudges we held on each other and expose each other's wrongdoings, so it was kind of embarrassing at times. I can't remember what any of the topics were that were brought up, but as I said, one of us would essentially just call another person out for something bad that they had done recently, or a bad secret that they kept, and the rest of the group would simply listen while the other person would make accusations, or the person making accusations would make accusations, and one person would be the judge and allow the convicted person to make little rebuttals, because sometimes the accusations were made up, which was kind of the point of the game. Honestly, I wish I could remember some of the things that were said, but even though I did, I guess they would have been pretty personal, so I wouldn't share them anyway. Now that I think about it, there is actually another story I kind of want to tell. I just kind of thought of this one on the spot. Came back as a little core memory being reawakened, but there was also a couple times back in elementary school, and this was something we actually carried into middle school, I'm pretty sure. They would give out these little mandarin oranges in bags, and I, in my entire life, have never actually gotten lunch from school. I've packed lunch for my entire life because I have allergies, so I never wanted to risk anything. But my friends that would get the lunches, sometimes they would bring little oranges or tangerines, whatever they are. They're all the same thing if you ask me. And we would take them and we would just smash them into cups to make quote unquote homemade orange juice. And it actually tasted pretty good. I mean, I guess that's not a surprise since it's literally just an orange. It's not like we added any goofy, disgusting slop to it like we did in our little serum concoctions that we made. But yeah, that was another thing that we did. I'm also remembering my first day eating lunch in the cafeteria now. In kindergarten, we didn't eat lunch in the cafeteria. There was just like a little snack time that we had, and we would just eat randomly. But by first grade, we actually started eating in the cafeteria. And I remember the day I got there, I didn't have any friends yet. So I was kind of awkwardly standing there looking for a place to sit, and for some reason I was late or something because the entire room was already filled. And a teacher came up to me and said, "Do you see any familiar faces?" And I was just looking around and I was like, "No." But then I saw this one person from my class and I was like, "Oh, okay, I guess I see a familiar face." So I got sat down at that table and I just remember eating there really awkwardly because I didn't have friends yet, obviously. But when I eventually developed a friend group, things got better in there. So I wish I had other stories to tell, but honestly, a lot of the time back in elementary school, I don't remember all of it, obviously, because it was a while ago now, not too long. But that and the fact that we probably weren't taking it for granted, or I don't even taking it for granted, whatever, I don't know what that term is. We weren't cherishing it, and we didn't know how much we would cherish it looking back. And this is one of those things that I wish there was just an invisible camera recording us the entire time so I could just go back and watch it all over again, because that would be pretty cool. I'm sure other people feel the same way, so that's kind of why I wanted to tell these stories. So yeah, consider liking and subscribing and whatever, and thanks for watching this. So I'm out here in 77-degree weather just to prove that you can in fact have water out when it's not 98 degrees or higher, because nothing is going to happen.